Walking into my house, the atmosphere felt unsettlingly silent, a stark contrast to the vibrant surprise I had imagined all day. "I'm home," I announced, my voice echoing through the empty space, expecting to see my husband Nate's smiling face or hear our daughter's giggles. Instead, a pair of unfamiliar high heels caught my attention, an intrusion in our cozy nest. Curiosity morphed into confusion as I followed the trail leading to the living room. There, framed by the soft glow of the afternoon sun, stood Nate, his arm casually draped over the shoulders of a woman I had never seen before. Her beauty was undeniable, but it was the intimacy of their posture that stung. "Happy birthday, Eliza," Nate greeted, his grin wide and unsettling. "Who's this?" My voice was steady, despite the whirlwind of emotions inside me. "Our guest for today," Nate replied nonchalantly. "Meet Alex Carter, my lover." The room spun as his words sunk in. "Lover?" I echoed, disbelief clouding my judgment. "Yes, and since it's your birthday, I thought it's the perfect time to give you your present." Nate's tone was eerily calm as he handed me an envelope. Inside, the words "divorce agreement" screamed back at me, a cruel joke masquerading as a gift. This is a joke, right?" The words barely escaped my lips, each syllable a struggle. "No joke, Eliza. I want a divorce. I'm in love with Alex," Nate declared, as if discussing the weather, not dismantling our life together. The coldness in his eyes, the ease with which he shattered our vows, was more painful than the betrayal itself. "You want to throw away our life for a fling?" "Alex is not a fling. This is real. And you're just not enough anymore." His words were a knife, each syllable twisting deeper. The woman, Alex, remained silent, a spectator to the wreckage of my marriage. "Enough, Nate. If you want this divorce, you'll regret it. But you'll get what you wish for," I said, my voice laced with a calmness I didn't feel. Nate's smirk faded, replaced by a flicker of uncertainty. "You think you can make me regret this? Watch me." My reply was a whisper, a promise of the storm to come. As I turned to leave, the gravity of the situation weighed heavily on me. My marriage, the love I thought we shared, was over. But in its ashes, a resolve was born. Nate would regret this betrayal, not today, but soon, and I would make sure of it. The silence of my bedroom offered no comfort as I lay awake, the scene from earlier replaying in my mind. The audacity of Nate's betrayal, his cruel unveiling of his affair on my birthday, was a wound that festered with each passing second. But it was his next actions that solidified my resolve for revenge. The morning after the revelation, Nate had the nerve to sit at the breakfast table as if nothing had happened. He poured himself coffee, the normalcy of the act a slap in my face. Alex was nowhere to be seen, but her presence lingered like a bad smell. "Nate," I started, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. "You really think you can just replace me with her? And on my birthday?" He shrugged, a gesture so filled with indifference it fueled my anger. Timing was coincidental. "But yes, I think Alex and I will be very happy." "Happy?" I scoffed. "You destroy our family for a fling, and you think you'll be happy?" "Alex is not a fling," Nate snapped, his facade slipping for the first time. "She understands me, unlike you." "Understands you? Or flatters your ego?" I retorted, unable to keep the bitterness from my voice. Nate's eyes narrowed. "What would you know about understanding? You're just convenient." The word struck me, a verbal blow that was meant to hurt. "Convenient?" I repeated, the absurdity of the situation suddenly clear. "Well, let's see how convenient life is without me handling everything for you." Nate's confidence wavered, a hint of realization dawning. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying, enjoy your happiness with Alex. But remember, actions have consequences. You'll see." I left the table, leaving Nate to ponder my words. The next steps were clear in my mind. Nate had chosen his path, blinded by infatuation and arrogance. He had underestimated me, thinking I would crumble under his betrayal. He was wrong. As I started planning, the idea of revenge wasn't just a fleeting thought. It was a promise. Nate would realize the gravity of his mistake, not just in losing me, but in underestimating my resolve. The betrayal had shattered something within me. But from those pieces, a new, determined Eliza was emerging, one that Nate would soon learn to fear. A month had swiftly passed since Nate's unfathomable betrayal, and the wounds he inflicted remained raw. Yet amidst the turmoil, a plan had taken root, one that promised not just revenge, but a revelation of Nate's folly. The day I decided to confront Nate and Alex was ordinary. with the sun casting a warm glow over what was to be the stage of Nate's unraveling. I found them together in the living room, their laughter a jarring melody in what used to be a home filled with genuine joy. Enjoying ourselves, are we? My voice cut through their merriment, causing Nate to stiffen and Alex to silence. Nate, we need to talk. About the divorce. And about Alex, I said, my tone leaving no room for the usual deflections. Nate eyed me warily, sensing the shift in my demeanor. What about it? It's about her famous writer status. You see, working in publishing, I have a good memory for authors. And Alex, I turned my gaze to the person who had invaded my life. I can't seem to recall any of your work. Alex's confidence seemed to waver under my scrutiny, a crack in the facade they had so carefully maintained. Nate, however, laughed off my accusation. You think you know every writer out there? I know enough to recognize a lie when I see one, I retorted sharply. Nate's amusement faded, replaced by a flicker of concern. What are you getting at, Eliza? Simply put, I doubt Alex is who you think she is, and I intend to find out the truth. The threat hung heavy in the air, a challenge to the web of deceit they had woven. Nate's reaction was immediate and defensive, a sign I had struck a nerve. You're just jealous, Eliza. You can't stand the thought of me being happy with someone else. Jealous? The accusation was laughable, and I let my disbelief show. No, Nate, I'm curious, and I'm going to do a little digging. Let's see what truths come to light. I left them with those parting words, a promise of the storm to come. The confrontation was not just about exposing lies. It was about reclaiming my power, about showing Nate that his betrayal would not leave me broken, but stronger, more determined. As I began my investigation into Alex's supposed literary fame, the pieces started falling into place. Each discovery, each lie uncovered, was a step closer to my revenge. Nate had chosen his path, blinded by lust and deception. He had failed to see the strength in me, mistaking my love for weakness. But as the truth about Alex began to unravel, so too would Nate's illusions. The confrontation was just the beginning. The real drama was yet to unfold, and I would ensure Nate watched as his world crumbled around him, piece by piece. My investigation into Alex Carter's background revealed a web of lies so intricate it was almost impressive. Armed with undeniable proof, I confronted Nate and Alex, determined to expose the deceit that had upended my life. I found them in what used to be our shared home office, now a testament to Nate's betrayal. Without preamble, I laid out the evidence I had gathered. Alex Carter, or should I say Alex Connors, not a writer, but quite the actor. Nate's face paled, a stark contrast to Alex's growing unease. What are you talking about, Eliza? Did you really think you could fool me? Your famous writer is nothing more than a fabricator of lies. There's no record of any Alex Carter publishing anything. But Alex Connors, on the other hand, has quite a history of deception. What Alex attempted to interject, but I wasn't finished. Save it. I'm not interested in anything you have to say. Turning to Nate, I continued, You brought this person into our lives, into our daughter's life, based on what, a fantasy? Nate stumbled over his words, the reality of the situation finally dawning on him. I didn't know. Of course you didn't. You were too blinded by whatever it is you thought you found in Alex. But the truth, it's far from the illusion you've been living. The confrontation was not just about exposing Alex. It was a reckoning for Nate. The man who had promised to love and cherish me, forsaking all others, had instead chosen a path of betrayal and lies. I want you out, I said, my voice devoid of the love and warmth it once held for Nate. Out of this house and out of our lives. You've made your choice, and now you'll live with the consequences. Nate tried to argue, to plead for understanding, but there was nothing left to discuss. You made your bed, Nate. Now you get to lie in it. Alone. As Nate and Alex gathered their things, the finality of the moment settled over me. This was not the life I had envisioned, but it was the one I was left with. Yet, in the midst of the chaos and heartbreak, a sense of empowerment began to take root. Nate's descent was of his own making, a direct result of his actions and choices. Watching them leave, I knew this was only the beginning. Nate's betrayal had unleashed a storm within me, one that would not be satisfied until justice was served. My revenge had only just begun, and Nate would soon realize the true cost of his actions. In the aftermath of Nate's revelation, I had expected him to retreat, to lick his wounds in private. Instead, He showed up at my doorstep, looking more haggard than I had ever seen him. The desperation in his eyes was palpable as he stood there, waiting for me to speak first. "What do you want, Nate?" My voice was cold, unwelcoming. I need to talk to you. About Alex and everything." He stumbled over his words, a man defeated. I considered turning him away, letting him drown in the mess he had made. But curiosity, and admittedly a desire to witness his suffering up close, compelled me to let him in. We sat across from each other, the air thick with tension. Nate was the first to break the silence, his voice barely above a whisper. "Alex, he wasn't who I thought he was. I was fooled, Eliza." "Fooled? Or too blinded by your own betrayal to see the truth?" I couldn't help the bitterness that seeped into my words. It was all a lie, his identity, his story. I don't even know who he is anymore. "And you think this confession changes anything between us?" Nate looked down, shame etched into every line of his face. "I know I've made unforgivable mistakes, but Eliza, you have to believe me. I was deceived." The conversation was a farce, a pathetic attempt by Nate to garner sympathy where none was due. But as much as I despised him for what he had done, I couldn't ignore the implications of his deceit. "So, what do you plan to do now? Crawl back to the life you so carelessly threw away?" Nate's eyes met mine, a flicker of hope in their depths. I was hoping we could start over, maybe not as a couple, but as friends?" The suggestion was laughable. Friends after everything he had done? "Nate, you destroyed our family. You chose Alex over your own wife and daughter, and now you come here seeking friendship?" I know it's a lot to ask, but I don't know where else to turn." The pathetic sight of him, a man broken by his own choices, stirred something in me. Not pity, but a resolve to see this revenge through to the end. "Nate, you need to leave. There's nothing for you here. Not anymore." He nodded, a man resigned to his fate, and stood to leave. But before he could reach the door, I stopped him with a final thought. "Let this be a lesson, Nate. You can't play with people's lives and expect to walk away unscathed. Karma always finds a way." With that, Nate walked out of my life, leaving behind a trail of destruction and a path to a new beginning for me. His exposure was complete, his illusions shattered, and as for me, the next chapter of my life was just beginning, one where I would rebuild stronger, wiser, and without the shadow of Nate's betrayal hanging over me. As the door closed behind him, I felt a sense of closure. The drama and revenge had played out, leaving behind a lesson in its wake. For Nate, a future filled with regret. And for me, a world of possibilities, free from the chains of a love that had turned toxic. The story of Nate and Alex was a cautionary tale, one that would serve as a reminder of the price of deceit. And as I looked ahead, I knew that the best revenge was not just in the suffering of those who had wronged me, but in the life I would build from the ashes of their betrayal. The days following Nate's departure were filled with a quiet that spoke volumes. It was the calm after the storm, a peace I had longed for, yet felt oddly unsettling. The final act of my revenge was nearing, the stage set for a confrontation that would seal Nate's fate and liberate me from the past. I was sorting through the last of Nate's belongings, a symbolic gesture of closure, when the doorbell rang. Standing on my doorstep was not Nate, as I had half expected, but Alex, no longer the confident interloper, but a figure of confusion and regret. "Eliza, may I come in?" Alex's voice was timid, a stark contrast to the boldness I had witnessed before. I hesitated, my initial instinct to shut the door in his face, but the desire for answers, for an understanding of the role Alex had played in this sordid tale, stayed my hand. Inside, Alex sat awkwardly, a man out of place in a home that had once been filled with laughter and love. I owe you an apology," Alex began, his gaze fixed on the floor. "For everything." "An apology?" I echoed, the words sounding hollow. "Do you even understand what you've done?" Alex flinched, the weight of his actions a visible burden. I realized now I was a tool in Nate's game. I believed his lies just as you did. The confession was unexpected, a glimpse into the complexity of the situation I hadn't considered. "You were fooled by him too?" "Yes, I thought we had something real, but I was just convenient, for lack of a better word." The irony of the situation was not lost on me. Alex, much like myself, had been deceived by Nate's facade. But while my pain stemmed from a betrayal of vows, Alex's was born of a misplaced trust. "And now?" I asked, curiosity overcoming my resentment. Now I'm left with nothing. No Nate, no future, just the fallout of a relationship built on lies. The conversation was a revelation, the lines between victim and villain blurred. Alex's role in my story was not as clear-cut as I had believed, his presence not the cause of my suffering, but a symptom of Nate's deceit. You know, Alex, I spent so long blaming you, hating you for what happened, but now, I see that we were both pawns in Nate's game. Alex looked up, his eyes meeting mine for the first time since he had entered. I never meant to hurt you, Eliza. I hope you can believe that. I do, I replied, the truth of the statement surprising even myself. And I hope you can move on from this, learn from it as I have. As Alex stood to leave, there was a mutual understanding between us, an acknowledgement of the pain we had shared and the strength found in its wake. Thank you, Eliza, for listening, and for the forgiveness I don't deserve. With that, Alex walked out of my life, leaving behind a story of love, betrayal, and the search for redemption. And as I watched him go, I realized that the best revenge was not in the suffering inflicted on those who wrong us, but in the grace we find within ourselves to move beyond the pain. The fallout of Nate's betrayal had brought me to the lowest point in my life, but it had also shown me the resilience of the human spirit, the capacity for forgiveness, and the endless possibilities that lay on the other side of forgiveness. My story with Nate had ended, but my journey was just beginning, a journey of healing, discovery, and newfound freedom. And as the door closed behind Alex, I felt a chapter of my life closing with it, making way for a new beginning, one where the scars of the past would no longer define my future.
Isabella, a renowned designer known for her creation of simple yet elegant dresses for affluent women, dedicated all her time and energy to her craft. At 35, she resided alone in a spacious studio apartment, furnished with only a comfortable bed and a small table where she enjoyed her morning coffee. The majority of the space was dominated by a large table holding fabric samples and her beloved sewing machine, a faithful companion in her solitary journey. Her social life took a backseat due to a flood of clothing orders from prestigious brands. Having never formed a family, Isabella once came close to marriage, but fate had other plans. She sighed, setting aside a folder of fabric samples in her attic studio, located in an elite district. The windows remained uncovered, allowing ample daylight to filter in. Isabella rose, tying the belt of her crisp white silk robe, and approached the window. The evening city below sparkled with golden lights, and farther away, the bay gleamed with lanterns along the main promenade. Evenings brought a stark awareness of her loneliness, unlike the busy days filled with creativity and work. The glittering city beneath made her feel like an invisible comet traversing a desolate cosmic space. Isabella sighed again, shifting her gaze from the distant city to her reflection in the glass. Her dark curly locks framed her face, and round reading glasses suited her well. Bright blue eyes, inherited from her mother, showed barely noticeable crow's feet. Isabella still possessed the beauty of her youth, often surprising others who assumed she was no older than 28. However, she believed such compliments were mere flattery. Looking into her own eyes, Isabella saw the echo of years spent in solitude, feeling akin to an ancient crone. Initially, she fought against this feeling, attempting to combat loneliness by donning a long black dress and wandering among brightly lit expensive storefronts or dropping into noisy bars. There, she would order lemonade, immersing herself in the music that once brought joy when shared with Javier, her fiancé. Memories of Javier's lively face and chestnut eyes filled with love haunted her, yet she rebuffed attempts by others to introduce themselves during her outings. Eventually, the walks became unbearable, leading Isabella to abandon evening excursions altogether. Instead, she immersed herself in her work, watched black and white movies, read, or doodled in her sketchbook until the late hours. Isabella ran her hand through her hair, pushing away memories. Turning from the window, she glanced at the wall clock. A gift from designer Hugo Martinez, its black and white dial showing 10 minutes to 10. Another call was imminent. The unraveling of Isabella's story began 7 years prior, a few months after her failed wedding. Suffering from the sudden disappearance of Javier, her fiancé, on their wedding day, Isabella mourned deeply. Taken in by her sister Mercedes and her husband, Isabella spent days staring blankly at the floral pattern on the wallpaper in a small room under the roof. It was in that room, as night approached and darkness enveloped her, that something peculiar occurred. Her unlit room became a canvas for disjointed images from the past. Memories of laughter, discussions of dreams, and promises of love flooded her mind. She vividly recalled the first date, walks in the park, and evenings by the fireplace. The room echoed with the chime of the old family clock striking 10, coinciding with the illumination of the room by a cold bluish-white light. Her mobile screen lit up with an incoming call from an unknown number ending in 49, the same numbers associated with the house on San Martin Street, where she and Javier had planned to build a life together. A tear rolled down Isabella's cheek as the call ended, only to be followed by the same numbers lighting up once more. Intrigued and somewhat apprehensive, Isabella answered the persistent call, her heart pounding. Yet the only response she received was a haunting silence. The next evening, precisely at 10 o'clock, the routine repeated itself. A call arrived from a different number, yet the enigmatic digits 49 persisted. Pressing the answer button, Isabella faced the familiar silence on the other end. Faint, intermittent breathing seemed to linger in the background, but certainty eluded her. Like clockwork, every day at 10 o'clock, the unknown number would grace her mobile screen, delivering nothing but ringing silence. Despite confiding in her sister about the mysterious calls and being advised to involve the police, Isabella hesitated. A peculiar sense of comfort and hope accompanied these daily occurrences, inexplicably soothing her. 7 years had passed, yet Isabella continued to anticipate the call with the digits 49, as if the universe communicated with her in this cryptic manner. Today, precisely at 10 o'clock, the phone rang once more. Holding it to her ear, Isabella immersed herself in the symbolic silence for a moment. "Good night to you too," she whispered to herself, ending the call. As she prepared to place the phone on the bedside table, it vibrated again in her hand. This time, a familiar number graced the screen, Hugo's name. They had collaborated on a collection 5 years ago, and he had gifted her the watch. Aware of Hugo's long-standing affection, Isabella had maintained a strictly professional relationship. "It's odd that he's calling so late," Isabella mused as she answered. "Hello, darling, how are you?" Hugo's friendly voice greeted her. "Hugo, it's me." "I'm fine. Why are you calling at this hour?" Isabella inquired. "No worries, not asking you out on a date." Hugo chuckled, putting Isabella at ease. It was always challenging for her to decline Hugo's invitations, but she valued their friendship. "Just hear me out," Hugo urged. "My manager called. We've been invited to a major business conference in the capital. Everyone will be there, understand. A golden opportunity to showcase our new collections, attract prestigious clients, and break into the international market. Isabella." The weight of the moment left Isabella momentarily speechless. "I don't even know what to say," she stammered. "What if I can't handle it?" A dissatisfied grumble emanated from the other end. "How can you not handle it? You're a pro. Where else would we find someone like you? You'll ace the collection presentation. I have complete faith in you," Hugo reassured, eliciting a grateful smile from Isabella. Hugo always knew how to support her. "But how did you manage to arrange this?" she asked, curious. For Hugo Martinez, nothing is impossible, he chuckled, affirming his unwavering confidence. With wishes for a good night, Hugo hung up, leaving Isabella lying in bed, her mind buzzing with excitement. She had dreamed of European recognition for so long, but never did she expect Hugo to make it a reality. The subsequent weeks were a flurry of preparation. The collection, still in the sketch stage at the time of Hugo's call, demanded swift action, finding fabric samples, making purchases, and crafting the models. By early May, everything stood ready, with only the final polish needed for the presentation aimed at captivating wealthy compatriots and European businessmen. Hugo emailed the tickets, prompting Isabella to contemplate her attire for the conference. Opting for strict tones with a touch of boldness, she sought to make a memorable impression. Why not wear a hat? Hugo's suggestion resonated over the phone, instantly sparking an image in Isabella's mind. Isabella settled on a light-fitting trouser suit, strategically concealing a slightly protruding belly. Underneath, she wore a thin meshed turtleneck, and atop her head sat a huge pink hat, complemented by matching candy-colored shoes. Hugo gave his approval, dressed in a mint-colored shirt accentuating his bronze tan, light trousers, and the vest. "We definitely won't go unnoticed." Hugo chuckled over the phone, and Isabella concurred. Their hour-long flight had them seated apart. Hugo dozed off, while Isabella reviewed the presentation materials, her nervousness palpable with sweaty palms. Much hung in the balance, her future prospects and the realization of a long-standing dream. The woman couldn't fathom the significance this business meeting would hold for her. The prior evening, precisely at 10 p.m., the mysterious call had come again. In a moment of unexpected spontaneity, Isabella had declared, "Tomorrow, my dream will come true." Silence lingered on the other end, yet Isabella sensed a silent sigh. Before landing, she managed a brief 10-minute nap, accompanied by a peculiar dream. Walking down the street in a pink hat under bright sunshine, she suddenly remembered the impending conference. In a rush to call Hugo, she realized her phone was missing. Panic set in as a hurricane wind snatched her hat away, leaving her in despair as darkness descended, accompanied by the tolling of a bell -10 strikes. Upon awakening, Isabella found herself still in the grip of the vivid dream. Javier, her ex-fiancé, rarely visited her dreams, and this time he appeared as a tangible presence. The unsettling feeling lingered as the plane descended. Upon landing, Hugo's concern was evident. "You look so pale, Belle. Did you have a rough flight?" he asked. "I'm fine, Hugo. It'll pass soon," she reassured. Hugo handled their luggage, called a taxi, and took charge, allowing Isabella a moment to collect herself. Despite feeling unwell, she pressed on. Arriving at the hotel, Hugo assisted with check-in and accompanied her to her room, emphasizing the importance of a good night's rest. "Sleep, sleep, sleep," he encouraged. Isabella, still in the throes of her emotions, entered her room, showered, and nestled under the fluffy blanket. At 10 o'clock, the anticipated call never came. Isabella waited for minutes that stretched into half an hour. By midnight, tears flowed, the first time in years. "Where are you?" she whispered in despair. In the morning, a concerned Hugo woke her. "Belle, are you still asleep? The conference starts in 40 minutes." Isabella rushed to get ready, masking dark circles with foundation. The hat covered any hair mishaps. Descending to the lobby with presentation materials in hand, Hugo expressed relief. "Thank God you're on time, Belle. As always, just a little tired," he remarked. "I slept very poorly," Isabella explained. "I understand," Hugo empathized. "I've called the taxi." In the car, swiftly arriving at a skyscraper with blue windows, Hugo consulted notes. "The conference will be on the 13th floor," he muttered. "Conference room number 49. Isabella froze. Hugo disapproved but refrained from comment. Entering the hall, a diverse crowd had gathered, renowned designers, fashion connoisseurs, and entrepreneurs worldwide. Seated at the front, Isabella momentarily forgot her worries. She was about to address this prestigious audience. Isabella extracted the presentation script from her folder, attempting to immerse herself in it, pushing the lingering unease in her soul aside to focus on her speech. The hall gradually filled with new faces, but Isabella hardly noticed. She only looked up from the text once to confirm that the rail displaying samples of her collection adorned the stage. Bright green feathers on dresses and the golden shimmer of sequins on jackets instantly caught her eye. Tears welled up as she was transported 7 years back, to the day she wore a radiant golden dress on her way to marry Javier. Refusing the traditional white wedding dress, she opted for audacious gold, a bold choice for her hometown. But in that moment, all she could think about was Javier and the eagerness to become his wife. Hugo's gentle squeeze on her elbow snapped her out of the grip of memories. "Belle, you're next," he whispered, and Isabella nodded. Taking a deep breath, she heard her name amidst applause, stepped onto the low stage, and faced the sea of camera flashes. As Isabella composed herself, ready to begin her presentation, something disrupted her focus. Her heart pounded desperately, and her head spun. What was causing this sudden fluster? Scanning the audience once more, she locked eyes with someone familiar, intense brown eyes belonging to the dearest person in her life. Transported back 7 years, Isabella recalled the limousine's stop at the church, stepping out in her luxurious golden dress. Her sister adjusted her hair as they ascended the wide staircase. Her father blessed her, kissed her forehead, and the doors swung open. The hall, however, greeted her with confused and empty stares, devoid of smiles or joy. Descending the memory lane, Isabella remembered the funeral-like atmosphere, the distant cries, and the shock of learning Javier had gone missing. A week later, they discovered his bloated body in a lake. Isabella turned to designing dresses as a way to cope. Now, standing before 100 people, she felt the weight of her long-lost loved one's eyes on her. "Come on, Bill," Hugo whispered, urging her forward. Isabella took a deep breath, beginning her performance. Yet, despite her will, her gaze wandered. Among the audience, she spotted the man with the familiar eyes, part of a foreign delegation, his dark, wavy hair revealing a touch of gray. Caught in his gaze, the man stood up and headed for the exit. Panic surged through Isabella. Stumbling and swaying, she dropped the presentation sheet. A commotion ensued in the front row as Hugo rushed to the stage to assist. Isabella helplessly looked between him and the exiting man, fearing he would vanish before she could unravel the mystery of those familiar eyes. Hugo stepped onto the stage, his hand on Isabella's elbow. "Are you okay?" he asked quietly. Isabella nodded, her throat dry. "Can you continue the presentation?" Hugo inquired, but Isabella's attention was fixed on the man by the exit, intent on leaving. "Wait!" Isabella shouted, rushing towards the exit. Ignoring Hugo's words, her pink hat fell to the floor, but she paid it no mind. The man reached the elevator, and Isabella followed, slipping inside just in time. "I must seem crazy, but you look so much like someone dear to me, someone who passed away 7 years ago," she explained, her voice barely audible. The man lifted his eyes, and Isabella's heart froze. It was Javier, or someone who looked exactly like him, his gaze filled with tenderness and love, tinged with guilt. "Bill, how I've missed you," the man whispered, embracing her tightly. Tears streaming down her face, Isabella clung to him. "Where have you been all this time? Why did you leave me?" she pleaded. "I'll tell you everything," Javier replied softly, running his hand through her hair. The elevator doors opened, and Javier led her to a waiting car around the corner. Isabella sat in the passenger seat, Javier behind the wheel, and they drove off. It felt surreal. Javier's hands on the wheel, the dark hair on his wrists. "I saw you in a dream on the plane," Isabella sighed, struggling to grasp the reality of the moment. "I saw you in a dream every day throughout all these years," Javier confessed quietly. Parking in a narrow alley, he turned to her. "Forgive me, Bill. I couldn't do otherwise," he said. As Isabella leaned forward, suspicion crept in, but Javier gently asked her not to interrupt. "I couldn't put you in danger, Bill, so I staged my own death," he confessed, causing Isabella to burst into tears. "How could you, Javier? How could you?" she asked. "I almost died of grief when I found out you had drowned. I almost went crazy. And all these years, why did you leave me for so long? Why didn't you get in touch? It would have been enough just to hear from you," Isabella questioned, her emotions pouring out. "All this time, I had to hide. You can't imagine how dangerous they are, Bill. Yes, I was afraid for myself, but most of all for you, Javier explained, his eyes reflecting the weight of his hidden struggles. I called you every evening. Isabella was thunderstruck. So it was you, she sighed, her heart flooding with mixed emotions. Javier gently stroked her cheek, his touch a balm to her soul. I thought about you every minute of every hour of every day of mine. I missed you so much, my love. Isabella nestled against him, her voice filled with longing. Me too. But why didn't you call yesterday? She asked, puzzled by his absence. I was on a plane, Javier simply replied, his eyes filled with warmth. And I knew that tomorrow I would finally see you. Isabella moved away slightly, her gaze searching his eyes for answers. But why did you leave all these years? I've been following your success. When I found out you were going to participate in the biggest business conference, I suggested to my company to become your investor. I really wanted your dream to come true. When you stepped onto the stage in your enchanting outfit, I almost went crazy with the desire to touch you. But I couldn't approach. I didn't want to ruin everything by disrupting your presentation. I never thought you would notice me in the audience. I was afraid of breaking your life again. You've come so far, become famous nationwide. There was no room for me in your life. Isabella shook her head, tears brimming in her eyes. Career could never replace what I've lost. You've always been everything to me. Oh, Belle, Javier uttered, salty drops rolling down his face, revealing the depth of his emotions. Isabella held him close, feeling his vulnerability, a familiar sensation stirring within her, a longing to care for him, to ease his burdens. What will become of us now? Isabella whispered, her voice trembling with uncertainty. I don't know. I'm free from them now, but it's not certain. In this business, you can never be 100% sure. I'm afraid it's still not safe for me. Isabella squeezed his hand, her heart heavy with worry. I don't care. Life without you doesn't make sense. Javier ran his hand thoughtfully through her hair, contemplating their future. Are you sure? He asked softly. Isabella nodded without hesitation. Javier sighed, pulling her closer, his touch reassuring and tender. Then he kissed her, a promise of a new beginning, and started the car, embarking on their journey together. From that moment on, they never parted ways. I received a shocking revelation at my workplace. My daughter, left in the car, had passed away. The news came abruptly from a police officer, leaving me in a state of distress. Frantically, I hurried to contact my mother, who was supposed to be watching over my child. Thankfully, she assured me that everything was fine. My daughter was currently enjoying a snack. Relief washed over me momentarily, but it was short-lived. The penetrating gaze of the police officer raised suspicions, making me realize a hidden truth. I am Kinayan Mullen, 38 years old, residing with my husband and child. My husband, 4 years my senior, works as a sales manager at a house manufacturing company. His demanding job often keeps him occupied on both weekdays and holidays, making him less involved in childcare and household duties. Requesting his help in picking up our child on his days off often resulted in frustration. Recalling a past incident when I worked at a drugstore on a Sunday, I asked him, who was on a day off, to care for our child. His response was dismissive, stating that he needed to relax on his day off, unlike me, a mere part-timer. Despite my concerns about his nonchalant attitude and whether he was properly caring for our child, Lucien, who is adept at playing independently, didn't require much attention. However, that day at work was difficult as I couldn't shake off the worry about my husband's caregiving capabilities. Subsequently, I entrusted my child to my nearby living mother. Fearing confrontation and reluctant to make situations awkward, I struggled to voice my concerns. He's exhausted. I need to understand that. I reasoned with myself, grappling with the challenges of parenting and managing household responsibilities on a part-time basis. Then, a pivotal incident unfolded on a particularly cold day. At the crack of dawn, the store manager called me urgently. Could you fill in for a colleague who isn't feeling well? Staff members often covered for each other's shifts. I'll be a bit late. I have to drop off my son at my mom's, but it's fine, I assured and ended the call. Upon contacting my mother, she readily agreed, prompting me to hastily prepare. Unexpectedly, my usually reserved husband, Jeffrey, offered unusually supportive words. Should I take him to your mother-in-law's? I was taken aback by his uncharacteristic concern. Really? Are you sure? What about your job? His unexpected support astonished me, and he assured, it's all right. I'll make it on time. Observing him happily picking up our son, I expressed my gratitude. Thanks, but he needs a car seat. Why don't I use your car today? I'll even drop you off at the train station. You're not comfortable driving my car, right? His large car intimidated me, but he reassured, it's genuinely helpful. Following a safe day at work, I received sincere thanks from the store manager, and even regular customers expressed their gratitude. The warmth of appreciation made me happy. However, just before concluding my shift around 4:00 p.m., an unexpected intercom announcement summoned me to the backyard. 2 men awaited, and the store manager discreetly informed me, it's the police, introducing me with a puzzled expression. This is Cam Mullen, police. Yes, I am Mullen. Despite my confusion, I struggled to piece together the situation, but nothing seemed to justify a policeman in casual attire approaching me. The officer scrutinized me from head to toe, urging me to remain calm as he delivered the devastating news. Please calm down and listen. Your daughter has passed away. Daughter? Whose daughter? My confusion deepened as they proceeded to explain the grim circumstances. A 1-year-old girl had tragically succumbed to the cold in my car, parked behind the station. The police, treating me as a suspect, detailed how the adjacent car's driver had discovered the distressing scene, prompting an ambulance call that proved too late. Only then did I realize I was under suspicion for creating the tragic situation. Wait a second. I don't understand what you're saying. I have a son, and my mother is with him today. Yes, I'll cooperate at the police station. Despite my protests and attempts to clarify, the police officer lightly patted me down, refusing to let me speak further. It became apparent that they assumed I had left my child unattended in the car while I was at work. Treated like a criminal, it was only after being placed in a police car that I was granted permission to contact my mother. This is absurd. I'm with him, of course. My mother, unaware of the situation, seemed shocked by my call. Despite the relief flooding over me upon hearing the voices of my mother and son, knowing my child was safe, the stark reality of the girl's tragic death in my car lingered. Upon reaching the police station, a detective with an intense gaze relentlessly questioned me, describing how my husband had taken our child to my mother's place that morning seemed to temporarily dispel suspicions. However, my attempts to contact my husband during the police inquiry remained unanswered. They asked, "Can you confirm if you know the missing girl?" This moment proved more challenging than the initial suspicion. Gazing at the girl, appearing peacefully asleep, I cried, overwhelmed with guilt. Unfortunately, I only had a vague impression of having seen her somewhere. Honestly admitting this to the police, they urged, "If you recall anything, contact me," finally releasing me as darkness enveloped the outside. Anxious to reunite with my son, I rushed to my mother's house. In the midst of explaining the situation to my mother, tears flowed, providing comfort as my child slept peacefully. Returning home after 9:00 p.m., my son fell asleep once more. I attempted numerous calls to my husband, who remained unresponsive. A midnight message arrived, revealing an unexpected business trip. Despite my immediate call, there was no answer, so I messaged back, informing him of the unsettling events. However, subsequent attempts to reach him were met with silence. The following day, I faced the morning after a sleepless night, haunted by a lingering concern. Beyond the distress involving my husband, the image of that girl persisted, as if I had encountered her before. Resolving to seek answers, I waited for my husband's work hours to commence, gathering the courage to make the call. My intention was to have his workplace contact him during his business trip. Surprisingly, I learned that my husband had taken a vacation since the previous day. Grateful yet perplexed, I found myself temporarily unable to process anything after the phone call. Amidst the shock, the idea of confiding in my best friend Chrissy dawned on me. Ready to make the call, I was met with astonishment upon opening my phone. In haste, I reviewed the messages from Chrissy. Lie. It's a lie. One of the images there shook me to the core, as the girl in the picture with Chrissy was the same girl left in my car. Oh my God, it was Chrissy's daughter who passed away. Suddenly, the fragments of yesterday's inexplicable events started connecting. The question echoed. Why was Chrissy's child abandoned in my car? Convinced that this wasn't a delusion, I began to suspect my husband and best friend of having an affair. 2 years ago, Chrissy, single after a divorce, had cryptically shared about her pregnancy, refusing to disclose the father. I won't tell you who the dad is. I'm just a single mother, she had laughed meaningfully. The possibility that the girl might be my husband's child loomed, though uncertain. Fueled by unbearable anger at being deceived for so many years, I felt the determination to unveil the truth in honor of the departed girl. My lack of assertiveness had allowed me to navigate my marriage without confronting my husband. However, upon discovering the betrayal, a newfound determination stirred within me. Realizing that 2 foolish adults had tormented an innocent child, I promptly took action to address the issue. After dropping my daughter off at the nursery, I headed straight to Chrissy's house. Upon arriving at her apartment and ringing the doorbell, Chrissy, still half asleep, answered. It's been a while. Did I wake you up? Huh, Kanaya, what's going on? Chrissy, lacking makeup, attempted to shut the door, but I anticipated it and placed my bag between the doors. There's Jeffrey too, right? Let's talk, the 3 of us. Despite Chrissy's panic, I found myself chuckling, perhaps due to the absurdity of the situation. Chrissy seemed unnerved by my strange laughter. All right, you should have told me you're coming, she grumbled but gestured for me to come in. Navigating to the back room, I heard my husband's voice calling out in surprise. What, Kenya? He was still in bed. However, his surprise was short-lived, and by the time he joined us in the living room, he seemed prepared to face me. Well, you've already found out, he nonchalantly remarked as soon as he saw my expression. Chrissy, who had been visibly upset moments ago, was now grinning behind my husband. Can you not make fun of me? I have something I want to ask. Oh, I'm scared. Despite the urge to scold Chrissy for her unserious demeanor, I suppressed it. I assume you've already been informed about her daughter. If you know that, why are you 2 here? Why haven't you gone to pick her up? It seemed they anticipated that I would be contacted regarding Chrissy's daughter. I couldn't fathom their actions, wondering just how much they knew about the situation. Give me a break. The police are taking care of that kid right now. She didn't even realize her child was missing and was shockingly optimistic. I learned, feeling disheartened by her ignorance. Simultaneously, I decided to unveil the truth after listening to their version of events. How did this happen? We were surprised too. There were a lot of people around when we returned to the parking lot. Oh yes, some people are just so dramatic, they casually remarked, delving into the details of the previous day. My husband, on vacation, had initially planned to spend time with Chrissy. However, Chrissy's child complicated matters when they tried to enter the hotel in front of the station. That's why he parked my car in a lot and went to the hotel with her child still inside. As I learned of this impulsive decision, my jaw couldn't help but drop. When I exited the hotel and returned to the parking lot, the police were surrounding my car. He even saw the ambulance and thought it was a bad situation, so he ran away. In a typical scenario, one would be concerned about the child's safety, but they interpreted the situation in their favor. I'm dismayed to hear that she's relieved to be free from taking care of her child, under the protection of the police. How long has your relationship been going on? I confronted them directly, urging them to share their side of the story. You're insensitive, Kaya. Right after I got divorced, it's been 4 years. I gave her some advice during her divorce, and things happened. It's a common pattern, I guess. Back then, I had suspected my husband of having an affair. Pregnant and anxious, I chalked it up to overthinking. I was astounded that my best friend was involved. So you're the father of Chrissy's child. Unlike my son, my daughter is cute. My husband candidly admitted, almost as if he aimed to provoke me. He confessed to the spontaneous idea of using my car, considering that Chrissy lacked one, and using my car with a child car seat would make outings with all three of them more convenient. Then you should have divorced me and married Chrissy, I retorted, feeling like our time together had been wasted, placing the blame squarely on my husband. Yet again, he made an absurd claim. If you do that, my company will find out about the affair and the child. It'll hinder my promotion. The idea of sacrificing our relationship for such reasons filled me with disgust towards my husband. Kenya, that's not all. Chrissy, standing beside him, condescendingly laughed. Jeffrey told me his wife is a submissive housekeeper who doesn't talk back, allowing him to do whatever he wants. I questioned. Okay, but were you okay with that? You have kids too. I pondered while Chrissy burst into laughter. Ha, I'm sick of marriage. I just want financial support for my living expenses. Oh yes, unlike Kaya, Chrissy costs me a lot. She's high maintenance. Ha ha ha. My husband and Chrissy, speaking openly, seemingly treated me as if I were invisible. Faced with their selfishness, my patience neared its limit. Anyway, what's our plan now? You can't escape this. I subtly directed the conversation. Is it that much of a trouble, Chrissy? Go pick her up. Then we got caught, so I have to pick her up. But the police will be mad at me. Yeah, she's not old enough to come home alone. So far, they don't seem to care about her child even once. And when they speak, it's all about their own worries. Enough is enough. There's no room for sympathy. Finally, I decided to reveal the truth. Honestly, I'm dumbfounded. Both of you only think about yourselves. Oh, what do you want to say? My husband glared at me, but I remained unfazed. I'll tell you the truth. Your daughter passed away yesterday. She was left in the car in the middle of winter. I revealed, watching as their eyes widened, and they screamed. Poor thing. I can't imagine how cold it was. Oh, you're lying. Your shallow actions have cost the life of a young child. Chrissy pointed at me, shouting angrily. It's all your fault, Kaya. Chrissy, you can't be mad at me. Why don't you reflect on yourself a little? I retorted. Shut up. It's your fault that you married Jeffrey. I don't understand what Chrissy is saying. When she introduced him to me, I wondered if Chrissy was delirious because of the shock of losing her child. When I'm having a hard time with my divorce issues, you can't get married to show it off to me. It's not supposed to happen. It's your fault. What are you talking about? You got divorced because of your own infidelity. It's your fault. No, it wasn't supposed to be like this. Chrissy, who started crying, continued to blame herself, saying, I should have been happier. On the other hand, my husband attempted to make excuses in front of her sobbing. Oh, it's none of my business. I was just going to have an affair from the beginning. It's too late. Chrissy's child doesn't really know I'm the father, does she, Kenya? We're not divorced yet, are we? Saying that, he approached me. I brushed his hand away and uttered in the lowest voice possible, Coward, don't show up in front of me again. Ignoring their ugly argument, I slipped away to the police. 2 days later, a call from the police informed them that the surveillance camera footage from the parking lot was the deciding factor, leading to their arrest. Both of them would now face justice properly. Their actions had set them on a long and arduous road filled with thorns. Meanwhile, I started to live a peaceful life with my mother and son. At the suggestion of the drugstore manager, I ended up working as a full-time employee. The unexpected restart of my life filled me with excitement.
Hi there, I'm Mabel, a 30-year-old who recently found herself in possession of a substantial fortune. This unexpected windfall led me to uncover an unsavory side of my husband. Today, I'll share this tale and how I inadvertently sought retribution against two individuals simultaneously. But first, a bit more about me. I had a close bond with my grandparents, even though we lived apart. Every few months, they'd visit, and my grandmother, in particular, showered me with love and affection. My grandfather's passing at 17 left me devastated, and I decided to attend college in my grandmother's state to stay close to her. It was during college that I met Toby, my now ex-husband, and we began dating in our junior year. Our relationship flourished, and we got engaged after graduating. While waiting for financial stability to tie the knot, Toby moved in with me. Everything seemed great, except for the challenge of dealing with his sister, Julia. Julia, living in a different state, adored Toby excessively and viewed me as a threat to their bond. Despite her constant rudeness, I tolerated her visits because she brought along her daughter, Viola, with whom I shared a special connection. Toby, unfortunately, never stood up for me, unwilling to hurt his sister. Fast forward to 4 years into our marriage, two significant events unfolded. Firstly, my beloved grandmother passed away, leaving me grief-stricken. Inheriting a substantial sum meant little compared to the loss. Secondly, Julia and her family returned to town. Toby's presence at home dwindled as he spent most of his time with Julia or, when at home, focused on her needs. Desperate to reconnect with Toby, I attempted to discuss my feelings, but he remained indifferent, until one rare day when he returned home alone, affording us a chance to talk. I cautiously broached the subject. "Hey, sweetie, how was your day?" This marked a rare opportunity to address the growing distance between us. I yearned for her presence, and being around her just makes everything feel right. "Anyway, do you want to hear what we discussed?" "Sure, go ahead." "Well, I was sharing with her our plans to purchase a house." "Hold on, I never agreed to that. Just hear me out." "Julia asked about the funding, and I explained your inheritance. She believes it's a wise investment for our future." "Why do you think that?" "You have more than enough money to almost fully buy a house. Investing in a home would secure our future, and I genuinely think it's a smart move. But I have other ideas for my money, things that could benefit both of us. I don't want to put all my money into one thing. It's like you're implying that your money is exclusively yours, not ours." "Well, in a way, it is. I decide how to use it, and you can't dictate that. Look, either invest in something for both of us, or I'm leaving." "Leave? Where would you go?" "You're practically begging me to use my money for a house. If you choose to leave, it's your loss. So you're fine with me leaving because you want to keep your money to yourself." "Don't twist my words. I brought it up because I thought you loved me and wanted a future together. Forgive me for trying to secure our future." "You're not making sense. I'm keeping my money, and I'll decide where and how to spend it." "Fine, but can you at least consider spending it on a house for us?" I wasn't sure why Toby was so insistent on buying a house, but something felt off. That's why I stood my ground. After that conversation, Toby distanced himself even more, spending increasingly more time at Julia's place. Julia stopped visiting, except to drop Viola off for me to babysit. I attempted to have a conversation with Toby numerous times, trying to understand what was bothering him. However, he always evaded the topic, insisting that everything was fine. Eventually, I gave up, hoping he'd open up when he was ready. Things took an unexpected turn one day when Julia dropped off Viola for me to babysit. "Hey, Viola, how's my favorite niece doing?" I teased. "I'm your only niece. Still your favorite, though," she chuckled. We planned a day out for ourselves, discussing nail colors and ice cream flavors. Suddenly, Viola dropped a bombshell. "I heard Mommy and Uncle talking the other day about cases and a big house after you left." Shocked, I probed further. Viola confirmed what she heard. She felt guilty for sharing, but I assured her she did nothing wrong. After our day together, I made her promise not to tell her mom or Toby. As Julia picked up Viola, panic gripped me. Toby's deception was unfathomable. I decided to call Toby's father, Edgar, a lawyer. Despite the risk, I trusted Edgar's integrity. He answered cheerfully, and I hesitantly explained the situation. "Hi, Edgar. How are you?" I began. After exchanging pleasantries, I confessed my concerns about Toby's behavior. Despite Toby's presence being the issue, I sensed Edgar could help. His response, however, left me anxious. I consistently urged Toby to treat you right because women as remarkable as you are hard to come by. Thank you, Edgar. You might be the only one in your family who sees me that way. I expressed my gratitude. What are you talking about? He inquired. I recounted babysitting Viola, who disclosed that Toby and Julia were plotting something against me. Edgar was taken aback, seeking clarification. Viola didn't know the specifics, but there was mention of a case and plans to take money from me. Stunned, Edgar asked, "What in God's name are you telling me?" "I also don't know what's going on. I'm worried, and I thought I'd come to you for help, considering you're a lawyer." "Good job coming to me. Do you believe Viola?" he asked. "I do, especially because Toby has distanced himself from me in the past few months. I tried talking to him, but he never took me seriously." "Why do you think Julia is involved?" "Ever since she moved back, they've been spending a lot of time together. I get that they were apart for years, but recently, Toby's been at her house for hours every day. It's a bit odd. Something must have happened a few months ago that triggered Toby's strange behavior." "Ah, what happened a few months ago?" "I received my grandmother's inheritance after her passing, a substantial amount. Toby wanted to use it to buy a house, but I was hesitant. Since then, he's been acting strange. My guess is they're planning to get their hands on my money." Edgar expressed concern for his children's actions, apologized, and suggested meeting at his office the next day to discuss the situation further. Grateful for his support, I took a day off and visited his office. Edgar apologized once again, but I insisted on focusing on finding a resolution. We suspected Toby might seek a divorce, so our first step was to contact reputable divorce lawyers in the city for advice, limiting Toby's options due to a potential conflict of interest. The next challenge was unraveling their plan to take my inheritance. Thankfully, Edgar was by my side, offering guidance and support. I had the foresight to keep my inheritance money in a separate bank account, never using it for Toby or myself. Though I intended to purchase luxury items for Toby, it became clear that it wouldn't happen since they couldn't access the funds. Edgar and I suspected they might resort to outright theft. Knowing I could control the situation by setting a trap, I utilized the advanced security system in my apartment, a precaution against potential break-ins, which Toby knew about and agreed to when he moved in. Subtly, I hinted to Toby that my bank details were on my laptop, feigning bank troubles he could assist with. Furthermore, I informed Toby of plans to meet a friend over the weekend, leaving him alone at home. Edgar acted as my alibi. During our conversation, I received a notification of a transfer from my account to our joint one. Alerting the police upon my return, I confronted Toby. Sitting in the dining room, Toby initiated the conversation. "We need to talk." "About us?" I inquired. "We're not working out," Toby declared. "I agree," I replied, surprised. "You agree? What do you mean?" "For one, I didn't appreciate you threatening to end things over money. I would have spent it on both of us had you not done that. I didn't think you would. And that's another issue. You think so little of me. That's not a sign of a good partner. You've been selfish since the start, and I tolerated it because I loved you." "How was I selfish?" "I helped you pay off your student loans first, not mine. I supported you for a year when you were unemployed. I sacrificed a lot for your happiness. Don't act like you were righteous. I would have done the same for you. You never helped me out," Toby countered. "Why would I expect you to sacrifice your comfort for me when I was sick? You're just trying to make me feel bad," Toby retorted. "No, and my last reason for not wanting to be with you is that I don't want to be with a lying, manipulative thief," I replied. "What are you saying?" "Don't think I don't know about what you and Julia have been planning. I saw you transfer money from my account into our joint account. I know you wanted to split that during the divorce." No, don't even bother. I know about everything. You are a pathetic man, and I see no reason to be with you." "Well, I'll still get half of what I transferred into our account. I still win." "Will you?" If I recall correctly, I had security cameras installed in my apartment, and you made that transaction from my laptop when I wasn't at home. I've already reported you for theft. The police should be here anytime soon. You did what? Oh, here they come. Good luck. I'll see you in court. The relief of finally seeing Toby pay for his actions was unparalleled. The following weeks were a nightmare of courtroom sessions and evidence viewing. Along with the theft charges, I filed for divorce. Edgar, my lawyer, fought diligently to ensure Toby paid properly for his crime. Edgar won the case, and Toby was sentenced to 2 years in jail with an additional $30,000 fine. Nothing tasted sweeter than the flavor of revenge. As Edgar and I celebrated our victory, Julia approached us. She had been conveniently absent during previous trials, choosing to show up only on the day of the verdict. That in itself spoke volumes. Angry, she pointed her finger at Edgar. Dad, you were helping this witch. Give me one good reason why I shouldn't have helped Toby. I don't know, Julia. Maybe because she literally put your brother in jail and he deserved his sentence. That'll make him think twice before trying to steal from someone again. How could you do that to your own son? How could you do that to your own brother? Don't think I didn't see the real reason behind your plan. You were going to help Toby get the money so you could also reap the benefits. I was trying to give him a break from this jerk here. You have no idea how toxic she is for him. I don't think she was the toxic one, Julia. You were a bad influence on him, and he was stupid enough to fall for your little game. He's getting the punishment he deserves, and maybe now he'll think twice before ever listening to you. You know you're going to lose him this way. He will never talk to you. Good, because, as far as I'm concerned, I have no children. I'll be here, but I'm not happy with the way you treated my baby brother. As far as I'm concerned, neither you nor your brother are my children because I know for a fact that this is not how I raise my kids. What are you talking about? What I'm saying is that I'm disowning both of you, and I want nothing to do with either of you. You can't do that. I actually can, and I'm going to do just that. This is all Mabel's fault. If she just thought of someone other than herself for a second, this would not have been happening. No, you should not have been so greedy. I was going to spoil Toby with all the things he wanted, but you had to interfere. You took away everything from him, and I hope you sit and think long and hard about what you did to your brother. Goodbye. I grabbed Edgar's hand, and we left. We couldn't help but let out a chuckle at what had happened. I was happy that Toby got what he deserved, and that I was going to be free of his manipulative ways. I was also happy to see Edgar take my side. I did feel bad that it was because of me that he had lost both of his children, but he assured me that it was their own decisions that led to that. I took him out for coffee afterward, and we've maintained a good friendship ever since. Julia harassed me a bunch over text, and Edgar took it upon himself to tell Julia and her husband to leave me alone. Now this is where I unintentionally got revenge on Julia as well. You see, Julia's husband had no idea about Julia's involvement in what happened between Toby and me, so he called Edgar and asked him what happened and was shocked to learn about what Julia had done. Apparently, their marriage had been in the dumps for a while because of Julia's constant nagging that he never brought home enough money while simultaneously refusing to work. He did not like that she would go to such lengths and ask for a divorce, of course. He also asked for full custody of Viola and managed to get almost full custody. Julia got custody for every other weekend. Not to mention, she didn't get much through that divorce either, considering that he had her sign an ironclad prenuptial agreement before marriage. Julia only received a small amount of alimony for a set period of time, and she was kicked out of their house. Once again, she blamed it all on me, and if I'm being completely honest, I was a little happy to see the way she got what she deserved. She tried to meddle in someone else's life, and she paid the ultimate price for it. Not to mention, I got to see Viola still because she loved me, and Julia's ex-husband could not say no to Viola. He was very apologetic for what Julia did, but I reminded him that he had no idea, so he had nothing to apologize for. And before you ask, yes, I am spoiling Viola senseless. As for me, my life is only getting better. I got a promotion at work and also decided to hire an accountant to help manage all my finances. I have invested my money in a few places, and it's only a matter of time before I get my returns on those. Getting to where I am today took a lot of struggle, but let me tell you, the view from where I'm at is one that I'm loving. I have a better understanding of people, and I'm going to be a lot more cautious. Thank you for your time. I had a great time with the $20,000 I recently saved up. After returning from a week-long trip overseas, my mother-in-law Isabella called me excitedly, mentioning something about saving $20,000. I was puzzled because I didn't remember having such a large sum. As a freelancer, I do have some emergency savings in my bank account, but I don't usually keep that much cash. Plus, my banking card was right here, and no one else should be able to withdraw such a large amount without my knowledge. Isabella claimed she took the money from the sideboard drawer, assuming we were rich. I thanked her for her good intentions but didn't understand why she thought I had given her the money. After this brief conversation, I wondered where the $20,000 came from. The mystery was solved when Anthony, presumably her husband, returned home a month later. Fast forward to a month later, and Isabella made over 80 calls, which I ignored. When I finally answered, she accused me of something, and I didn't quite understand. It seemed like she was upset, but I couldn't figure out why. Isabella's persistent calls became annoying, and when I finally answered, she started blaming me for something. Confused, I realized she was reaping what she had sown. Isabella's voice echoed loudly through the phone speaker as I learned her name was Scarlett, a 32-year-old freelance jewelry designer. I really want children, but my job keeps me very busy. My husband, Anthony, who is the same age as me, used to have a regular job, but now he helps manage my work. When we got married, I wasn't making much as a designer, and we relied on Anthony's income. However, as I turned 30, my work became more stable, and I needed help managing my schedule. Anthony, who had a good position at his job, decided to quit and join me as a business partner. With his help, we now have deals with famous international brands. Although we face challenges as a couple, the main issue is Anthony's mother, Isabella, who lives alone in his family home. Isabella thinks we're living a luxurious life and often asks for money. She believes we live extravagantly, attending fancy parties and dinners with company executives. While these events are part of my job as a jewelry designer, Isabella sees them as leisure. She even asks for money to throw a party for her friends. I can afford to give her money, but it's not as glamorous as it seems. These events are expensive, and I have business obligations that I can't refuse. We're now living in luxury. It's all part of our work, dressing up beautifully and eating at expensive places. Isabella often expresses her envy towards us with a hint of sarcasm. Despite my continuous refusals to her requests, Anthony, being her son, sometimes gives in and hands her money. He believes it's a small price to pay to keep her quiet and avoid interruptions to our work. However, Isabella's demands only increase, leaving both of us frustrated. Recently, Isabella came over and pestered Anthony about buying a new dress for an upcoming gathering. Despite suggesting a more affordable two-piece suit, she insisted on an expensive dress for the fancy party. I believe proper attire, whether old or new, shouldn't matter, but Isabella makes a fuss. She also added that she needed a matching bag and was counting on us for that. To address Isabella's constant money demands, Anthony set up a credit card in her name, telling her to use it for her expenses. Initially, she overspent and got warned by Anthony. He then asked her to report before making significant purchases. However, Isabella continued to overspend, once even buying an expensive ring without prior notice. The bill became astronomical, and Anthony, who was paying the bills, couldn't afford it. Isabella seemed to think the credit card meant endless spending without consequences. Anthony, frustrated with the situation, decided to put a limit on her card spending. Isabella stormed in, complaining that she couldn't pay for her recent shopping, not realizing the financial strain her overspending was causing us. We've lowered your monthly limit, but it's still enough, right? Isabella challenged, questioning the fairness of our lifestyle. She argued that her desire for fun and luxury wasn't much different from our work-related dressing up and attending fancy places. We explained that events like product launches and parties were part of our job, often taking place in luxurious venues. However, Isabella perceived it as us having fun rather than working. Since putting a limit on her credit card, she had quieted down a bit. Occasionally, she would come to our house and complain to Anthony, but life went on without major issues. As the year-end approached, a foreign brand approached me with a proposal to expand our business overseas. Excited about the opportunity, I saw it as a chance to join the ranks of top-tier designers. Anthony, handling things as my manager, saw it as a rare opportunity we had to take. However, there was a concern about Isabella. Given her past behavior, it was plausible that she might want to come with us. When we told her about our plans that weekend, she reacted just as we predicted. Isabella insisted we were trying to trick her and live even more lavishly overseas. Anthony tried to explain that it was for work, not leisure, but Isabella wouldn't give up, fearing we planned to move there permanently. We'll come back after our work settles down overseas, I reassured Isabella. She seemed worried that our plans would leave her behind. Both Anthony and I were exhausted from this circular argument. We couldn't take her with us, but Anthony, worn out from convincing her, suggested paying for a week-long trip for her instead. Really? Are you sure? Isabella half-happily accepted, and Anthony promised to cover her flight and hotel expenses. However, the peace didn't last long. A few days later, while Anthony was busy with overseas arrangements, Isabella visited our house. Anthony said that, but I want to shop over there too. Can you give me some money? She requested. I asked about the card Anthony had given her, and she admitted he had taken it away, fearing she might misuse it with different currency rates overseas. I explained that I couldn't give her money without Anthony's approval. Isabella left, raising her voice, and over the New Year's, she went on a 7-day trip abroad. Upon her return, Isabella revealed an unbelievable truth. She called me excitedly, sharing her experiences and mentioning she had overspent on souvenirs. Feeling fed up, I asked about the money she claimed I had saved up for her. I had no recollection of such money, and the situation took an unexpected turn. I had some savings in my bank account for business emergencies, but Isabella couldn't possibly withdraw cash from it. Despite what she claimed, I had no memory of it. She said she found $20,000 in our house's sideboard drawer, and I was confused about why such money would be there. I couldn't imagine us keeping such a large amount of cash at home. I told Isabella that if she took money from our house without permission, it amounted to theft, even if she's family. I emphasized the seriousness of the situation, especially if Anthony had set the money aside for an important deal. There hadn't been any disruption in our business dealings or payments while Isabella was on her trip. Isabella nonchalantly admitted to using the money, saying, "I'm telling you now that I used it." I pointed out that taking someone else's money without permission is a crime and expressed my concern about her entitled reasoning. Isabella defended herself, saying, "You too live so extravagantly, so why can't I have a little of that?" Think of it as doing a favor for your parent. I found her reasoning inappropriate, considering she took money without asking. I promised to ask Anthony about the money when he got back. Isabella believed Anthony would understand, being his only mother, and claimed that $20,000 wasn't much to him. I agreed to pass along the message, still uncertain about the entire situation. I was amazed at Isabella's lack of awareness, and she ended the call by saying, "Please tell him that, thanks." Still baffled by the $20,000 in cash at home, I asked Anthony about it when he returned that night. Anthony had withdrawn the money from his bank account 10 days ago for an urgent payment. He needed cash immediately, but I was surprised that he kept such a large sum in a drawer, considering the potential risks. Anthony, looking troubled, asked if I knew anything about it. Today, Isabella called, thanking us for the $20,000 and mentioning she had a blast with it. I didn't understand what she meant, but it turned out the money was Anthony's after all. However, we still didn't know what such a large amount was meant for. I questioned Anthony about why he had left such a large sum at home, especially when we usually did bank transfers. Anthony explained that after limiting Isabella's credit card amount, she had secretly borrowed money from various sources, including consumer finance cards and credit cards she had opened without his knowledge. When Anthony discovered this, he took all her cards and prepared the cash to repay Isabella's growing debt. Although he gave her the cash, he knew she might spend it recklessly. The situation became clearer, but the mystery of Isabella's actions remained. I planned to pay the institutions directly through bank transfers, but Anthony preferred fewer records in our bank accounts for the sake of trust with our business partners in bookkeeping. So he decided to withdraw the cash and pay individually. Supporting Isabella's overseas trip was like a parting gift, knowing we wouldn't be able to take care of her like before after moving abroad. As time passed, Isabella's calls to my mobile phone became frequent, almost 80 calls every day. Anthony had advised me not to bother with her, but the persistence made me concerned. One day, Isabella's voice sounded almost like a cry as she apologized for bothering me during the busy moving preparations. She explained that she was receiving payment demands almost every day, and Anthony seemed to be blocking her calls. Isabella couldn't get through to him and pleaded for my help, saying I was her only hope. I was surprised that Anthony would take such a drastic step with his own mother. If he had used the money he prepared to pay off Isabella's debts, this situation might have been avoided. Now Isabella was inundated with collection letters from finance companies and consumer lenders, facing non-stop collections calls and seeming helpless to do anything about it. It was a scene I had only seen in dramas before. I mentioned it to Anthony, but I couldn't predict his response. Isabella pleaded for help, saying it was a son's duty to assist his mother. The call ended, and I told Anthony about it when he returned home, but he dismissed it coldly, stating that Isabella wasted the opportunity herself. Despite the continued calls from Isabella, I decided to block her number, following Anthony's lead. While I wished I could help, being Anthony's mother meant there was nothing I could do if he had chosen to ignore her. As the day of our move overseas approached, I needed to finish packing. Looking around the still cluttered room, I couldn't shake the lingering feeling of helplessness in the face of Isabella's predicament. It turned out that Isabella had to sell her house to settle her debts. In addition to the $20,000 Anthony had intended to use for repayment, she had hidden even more debts. The amount was so substantial that even after selling her land and house, she couldn't fully clear it. The total balance was unimaginable. Our family home was gone, and Anthony, though somewhat sad, acknowledged there was nothing we could do. Losing the house where one grew up must have felt like a significant loss. Anthony, having lost his place to return to because of his living mother, must have been feeling a deep sense of loss. Isabella now lived in a cheap apartment, struggling to repay the remaining debts with her part-time job. At her age, finding work must be challenging. I felt a bit of sympathy for her. However, the consequences of her spending led to this, so she was to blame. Even for the elderly, taking responsibility for their actions is necessary. Despite the challenges, my business was thriving overseas, and the move had brought more inquiries from other brands. I received offers from unexpected places, something I couldn't have imagined back home. Although it was all appreciated, I was so busy that I barely had time to sleep. Anthony, too, was occupied with various tasks. At this rate, having children was still a distant thought. I pondered this as I gazed at the foreign cityscape outside the window. "Get out because I'm moving in with my family," Jeff pointed at us, loudly declaring while my in-laws were giving instructions to the movers. His face twisted maliciously, and I couldn't help but show my disgust. However, Stacy, next to me, reacted differently, asking Jeff with confusion, "Dad, you didn't know?" Hearing this, Jeff was visibly puzzled. Stacy seemed so flustered that not only Jeff, but also his mother and father stopped what they were doing and looked over at us. Nicole continued to give instructions to the movers, seemingly uninterested in the situation. Despite my dismay at the behavior of Jeff's family, I was determined to reveal a certain truth. My name is Dean Anderson, a 46-year-old remote worker. I have a husband and a daughter leading a typical life. After several dates, Jeff proposed to me 3 years into our relationship. Having a frequently ill mother, I wanted to marry as soon as possible to give her peace of mind, so I accepted Jeff's proposal. Sometime after our marriage, I found out I was pregnant. Jeff was truly happy, eagerly looking forward to seeing our child. When our daughter Stacy was born, Jeff took an active role in parenting, and I lived happily. However, I had some worries. The biggest concern was about my mother. Her health improved upon seeing her grandchild, despite being almost better than before, and she visited us often. Initially, she visited frequently, but as Stacy entered middle school, my mother's health visibly declined. I quit my job to be available for my mother, choosing remote work. This decision allowed me to fully take care of my mother's hospital admissions and discharges. By the time Stacy graduated middle school, my mother was very happy when we visited her. I hoped she would gradually recover and be able to go out as before. However, around this time, Jeff's behavior began to change. Initially, he was willing to help with my mother's care, but lately he had become grumpy, complaining that I wasn't paying attention to him. "Going to your mother's again? You don't care for me when I'm tired from work, but you always look after your sick mother." He would say such incomprehensible things, and even when Stacy and I tried to appease him, he strongly rejected our efforts. Worried about both my mother and Jeff, Stacy took over caring for Jeff. "Mom, leave Dad to me. You should go to Grandma sooner," Stacy said with a smile, and I always relied on her. One day, while living this way, I received a call from my sister-in-law, Nicole. "You've been neglecting my brother lately," she accused out of the blue, making me stare at my phone screen in surprise. I pondered if there was a mix-up, but Nicole's name was clearly displayed on my phone screen. Confused by the baseless accusation, I could only deny it. "It's been a while, Nicole. What's going on all of a sudden?" "I haven't been neglecting Jeff," I said, clueless as to why Nicole would say such a thing. "Don't play dumb. I've heard it from my brother lately. You've been neglecting the house to care only for your own mother. Can you still proudly call yourself a wife?" Nicole accused, and I was baffled. I had been focusing more on my ill mother lately, but I never thought Jeff would tell Nicole about it. However, I wasn't neglecting our home. Stacy helps with the household chores when she gets back from school, and I manage both my work and my mother's care along with the housework. Lately, I did feel like Jeff's complaints had increased, but they were about trivial things like wanting to eat at expensive restaurants or not liking the smell of the laundry detergent, things we couldn't do much about. I was not neglecting the household chores. Just as I was about to explain in detail, Nicole said something shocking. "Unfortunately, this has reached our parents too. Someday, our angry mother might come to scold you." Leaving me with those irrational words, Nicole hung up. Immediately surprised by the unexpected turn of events, I was speechless until Stacy spoke to me. "Mom, I'm home. What happened? You look stunned." Regaining my composure, I told Stacy, who had just returned from school, about the conversation. Stacy, too, was shocked and incredulous. Sighing in disbelief, she said, "Hey, Mom, there's something I've been thinking about for a while. Can I talk to you about it?" Nervously, I nodded to Stacy's serious request. Listening to Stacy's concerns made me feel truly disheartened. During a period filled with Jeff's nonsensical complaints and Nicole's harassing calls, my in-laws finally took action. One day, after visiting my mother, I came home to find my mother-in-law cooking in the kitchen. Entering the living room, I was so surprised that I dropped my things and just stood there staring at her. Noticing me, my mother-in-law frowned and approached. "Oh, you're back. How's your mother?" "Well, have a seat." Feeling her irritation, I had no choice but to follow her past me to our living room sofa, where I received a lengthy lecture. Initially, she scolded me for my attitude towards Jeff and berated me for neglecting my household duties and making my husband do chores. However, I noticed some inconsistencies in her lecture and corrected her. Mother, there are some misunderstandings. I have never made Jeff do the household chores. In fact, Jeff hardly helps at all. Embarrassingly, it's Stacy who helps me out. Hearing this, my mother-in-law suddenly stood up, pointed at me, and started shouting. Do you think that lie will work on me? Are you saying that child is lying to me? What a terrible daughter-in-law. That's enough. With her face red with anger, she stormed out, leaving the stove on and everything behind like a tempest. I hurried to turn off the stove, so I couldn't chase after my mother-in-law. That day, Jeff was in a strangely good mood, almost unnervingly generous. He kept cutting me off every time I tried to explain. I attempted to initiate a conversation, and Stacy also appeared perplexed by the situation. We decided to remain silent and observe, not wanting to upset Jeff. For a few days, Jeff continued to be in a good mood without any issues. Thanks to that, I could take care of my mother without feeling uneasy. However, a few days later, my mother quietly passed away. Despite being engulfed in sadness, Stacy and I managed to get through the funeral and then spent some time sorting through my mother's belongings at her house. I had hoped for Jeff's assistance, but bringing it up made him sullen for the first time in a while. So Stacy and I proceeded with the task, and naturally, the house was filled with memories of my mother, making it difficult to make much progress. As each item reminded us of her, I reluctantly contacted Jeff, and despite his initial good mood, he suggested we stay the night at my mother's house. However, with Stacy's school and my work, it wasn't that simple. For the time being, I told him we would return home the next day and decided to rest for the night. The following day, after making some progress with the sorting, we decided to go back to our house. As we approached our home, I noticed a large truck parked in front of it. Wondering what it was, I realized it was a moving truck with Jeff and my mother-in-law directing the unloading. Confused, I ran up with Stacy to stop them. Jeff stepped forward, puffing out his chest as he noticed us. You're back already. It's too late for you to return now. I'm moving in with my family, so you two need to leave, he declared loudly with a malicious twist to his face. I couldn't help but show my disgust, but Stacy, standing next to me, asked Jeff with confusion, Dad, you didn't know? Jeff was visibly puzzled, and Stacy's words caught the attention of not only Jeff, but also his mother and father. Despite my dismay at the behavior of Jeff's family, I was determined to reveal a certain truth. Forgotten, this house is mine, I asserted confidently. The in-laws were shocked, and Jeff began to panic, turning pale. Even Nicole, who had been giving instructions to the movers, stopped and confronted me. What are you talking about? There's no way you could afford to build such a fine house. Now it was my turn to respond with confidence. Thank you for the compliment. This house was built by my father, and originally it's my family home. That can't be true. This house is so beautiful. It looks almost brand new, Nicole exclaimed. Does it look that way? Thank you, Mother. My mom renovated it for us as a wedding gift. Jeff should know about this, I said, attempting to clear up the confusion. It could have easily slipped his mind. But this house is naturally in my name, and the renovation costs were covered by my mother. She moved out happily to an apartment so that we could live here contentedly for a long time. Jeff and I went to express our gratitude to my mother and even discuss the possibility of living together. However, Jeff, who tends to forget things that don't suit him, appeared to realize that his plan had failed. Just as I was about to speak, Stacy began to share information she learned from the inheritance process. Grandma left a lot of assets for me and Mom. But it's not money. It's things like land and apartments that can't easily be converted into cash. Upon hearing this, Jeff turned to his parents with shining eyes, and Nicole raised her hand in joy. Wait a minute. I had no idea your mother had so much wealth. You never said anything about this when we got married. Jeff's outburst led his family to start complaining selfishly. What's that? Isn't that like marriage fraud? That's terrible. You intentionally kept quiet because you didn't intend to give Jeff any of the property. What a greedy woman. From the conversation earlier, it sounded like only you two would inherit everything. My father-in-law, who noticed the most crucial part, looked at us, and I nodded clearly while explaining the situation. Yes, the inheritance is divided between Stacy and me only. Jeff gets nothing. We found the will while sorting through the belongings yesterday. Hearing this, Jeff's family turned red with anger, especially his mother, who was the most furious. This can't be allowed. We'll get a divorce, and then I'll make sure to get compensation from you. As his mother screamed in anger and frustration, I accepted her reaction without hesitation. Yes, I agreed to the divorce. The moment I agreed, his mother turned around and ran off, presumably to the city office, which is probably close by, to get a divorce form. Deliberately not stopping her angry departure, I watched her leave. As I watched his mother head to the office, Jeff grumpily asked me, "Hey, what are you planning to do now? Are you talking about the divorce or where you will live?" Jeff almost snapped at me, but I looked up at the house indifferently. "This house is actually already on the market," I said, surprising Jeff. Confused by my words, Jeff looked puzzled, exchanged looks with his father, and then looked back at me. He didn't seem to understand what I meant, which was to be expected. While spending another night at my mother's house, there was no way Jeff and his family could have imagined that I was selling this house. Facing the puzzled expressions of Jeff and his family, I once again spoke up with confidence. "I've always felt it every time you treated me terribly." I found myself questioning why I had chosen to marry Jeff. I had endured it for Stacy's sake, but even Stacy reached a breaking point, expressing that she couldn't tolerate it anymore. Confronted with this shocking truth, Jeff's face turned pale, and he looked at Stacy. In response, Stacy met Jeff's gaze firmly and voiced her thoughts. "Dad, you always said it was sad to be ignored as the head of the house or to be belittled after coming home tired from work. But don't you think there's a reason you're treated that way? Why don't you realize that you're neglecting and belittling us?" Stacy's pointed words left Jeff speechless. As I thought that he might just silently sign the divorce papers and sulk away, Nicole blurted out something shocking. "If I knew it would come to this, I wouldn't have bothered with the renovation." Everyone present was taken aback by this sudden confession. Looking at Nicole all at once, I was surprised. Not only were Jeff and my father-in-law unaware of Nicole's actions, but her statement itself was unexpected. "Why would you do something like that without permission?" yelled my father-in-law, to which Nicole started making excuses without much concern. "I wanted to live in my ideal room, okay, so I thought, why not take over this house and renovate it while we're at it? But you're selling the house, right?" "Oh, but if you're selling it, why not renovate it and sell it for more?" Nicole's nonchalant and cheery demeanor as she said this made Stacy and me sigh. Not only were we dismayed, but Jeff and my father-in-law felt the same, with Jeff clenching his fists in suppressed anger. Finally, unable to tolerate Nicole's recklessness, Jeff began to yell, "Excess! Even if it's going to be sold or become ours, you should have told us first. We were preparing to move. Where were we supposed to live during the renovation?" Though his preamble was a bit off, his point was valid, leaving Nicole surprised. "Oh, really?" As Nicole responded, Jeff was about to yell again when we saw my mother-in-law running towards us from a distance. It seemed she had brought the divorce papers. "I got it. The divorce papers. Now sign it right here." Despite being out of breath and excited, my mother-in-law, who was handing me the divorce papers, was unaware of the commotion that had just occurred. But that didn't matter to me. I took the divorce papers from her and handed them to Jeff. "You write it. After all the times you've belittled me, you agreed to our divorce, right?" "No way." Jeff immediately refused, possibly because he knew about my mother's inheritance. However, I couldn't tolerate Jeff's behavior and his family's strange antics any longer, so I provoked him, aiming to get him to write the divorce papers. "Changing your tune so suddenly? Seems like you've been in a good mood lately, probably thinking about taking over my house, right? Too bad. Even without my mother's inheritance, I had no intention of handing over this house. It's already planned to be sold. Either way, you'll end up homeless." At my words, Jeff looked bitterly at the divorce papers, trying to control his anger and calm himself. I knew too well the points that would set Jeff off. It might be a disgrace to you, but if you sign this divorce paper, I might feel a bit relieved. I figured that by demanding from a position of superiority, Jeff would easily be swayed to do as I wished. Given his condescending view of me, this statement was born from such thoughts, but indeed, it contained many of my true feelings. As expected, Jeff's face turned red with anger, and he snatched the divorce papers from my hand, starting to write immediately. "If you insist so much, I'll give you your divorce." I felt a sense of relief at Jeff's hasty action. I had worried that he might reconsider and calm down, but Jeff was simple after all. After receiving the half-completed divorce papers, I filled in my part to prevent any further unexpected events and completed it. I then entrusted the finished divorce papers to Stacy and turned back to Jeff's family. "All that's left is to submit this to the city office, so take all the stuff you brought in with you." Wait a minute. Are you serious? You said you feel relieved if Jeff signed the divorce papers. That's correct, but I never said I'd agree to the move. What about the renovation? Renovation? Unaware of the renovation discussed in her absence, my mother-in-law standing next to my father-in-law grabbed Nicole. After receiving an explanation, a big argument started, and while my father-in-law and Jeff tried to intervene, I attempted to leave with Stacy. However, Jeff and Nicole, determined not to let us escape, grabbed at us. But the movers, who had been watching the situation with dismay, stepped in to mediate. Amid the chaos, we heard the sound of police sirens. Protected by the movers, I looked around and noticed neighbors gathered, drawn by the noise. Seeing a police car approaching with its red lights flashing, someone from the neighborhood must have called them, and we felt relieved. But that relief was short-lived, as Jeff's entire family seemed about to attack us. Just in time, the police intervened, and we were safe. Despite being stopped by the police, Jeff's family's commotion didn't cease, and another officer had to escort us into a police car to calm the situation. Nicole, mistaking our being escorted for an arrest, attempted to throw belongings into the house and was naturally stopped by the police. With additional support arriving to finally quell the disturbance, as Jeff's family began to calm down, the police asked us to accompany them for questioning, leading to further troubles when either Jeff, Nicole, or both acted against the officers. They were arrested for obstructing official duties and taken away in police cars that had arrived for backup. Jeff's parents were also scolded by the police and taken to the station for questioning. From the police car, we observed the entire ordeal, providing a brief statement. Eventually, Jeff and I officially divorced. The process, initially resisted by Jeff even after signing the papers, was prolonged. However, thanks to a mediator, we were able to finalize it smoothly. Soon after, my house found a buyer, securing the money from the sale. Despite Nicole's push for a renovation, the house had already been renovated when my mother passed it down to me, and a buyer quickly appeared. Afterward, my in-laws were not prosecuted, but they couldn't return to the house I inherited, having sold their own house in anticipation of moving into mine. This left them without a place to live, and due to the commotion, they became outcasts in the community, struggling to find a place to belong. My claim for compensation further cornered Jeff's family. The incident became well known at Jeff's workplace, leading to a pay cut followed by his voluntary resignation. Now, he is working day jobs to make compensation payments to me and, for a short while, child support for Stacy. Balancing income and expenses is difficult, and he seems to be juggling multiple jobs to keep up with the payments. As for Nicole, after the dust settled from the incident, she continued working as a beauty consultant as if nothing had happened. However, rumors reached her customers, and eventually, upper management learned of the incident, leading to her dismissal. Despite once living a flashy lifestyle, her savings quickly dwindled. Like Jeff, she is now working multiple jobs to make ends meet, including compensation payments to me. Regarding my in-laws, there was some trouble after the incident, leading to their divorce. Now they are living separately. The mother-in-law, ostracized by the neighbors, was fired from her part-time job. The father-in-law, who planned to enjoy his retirement with his pension, had to allocate most of it to compensation payments to me and is now looking for work despite his age. They are each in a difficult situation, but this is their reparation to us, and I hope they take this time to reflect. On the other hand, Stacy and I have moved to a new house. Even if Jeff's family tries to approach Stacy's school, it's not an issue since she has already transferred. Continuing my work from home and thinking about spending peaceful days ahead with Stacy naturally brings a smile to my face. Feeling liberated from our past troubles, I plan to live happily with Stacy, just the two of us.
Greetings, I'm Jenny, aged 27. 3 years back, I tied the knot with Hugo, the most remarkable person I've ever met. He's a delightful goofball, overflowing with kindness and compassion, making each day feel extraordinary. Regrettably, the same sentiment doesn't extend to his mother, Maria, also known as my mother-in-law. For reasons unknown, Maria has harbored animosity toward me since day one, a sentiment I comprehend. After all, Hugo is her cherished son, and she's merely safeguarding his interests. However, I firmly believe she sometimes crosses the line. Maria has a knack for subtle injustices that seem innocent but are actually calculated to incite frustration, painting you as the unreasonable one. We all have encountered someone like her. Unfortunately, she happens to be my mother-in-law. I was brought up differently. I'm inclined to call out nonsense and rarely hold back. Perhaps that's what drew Hugo to me. Our contrasting personalities attracting each other, as they say. Having studied psychology, I can discern Maria's ill intentions. Our dominant personalities clash, which likely led to her first words to me. "Jenny, don't you think it's time to stop eating so much?" The table fell silent, stunned. Mortification painted my face pale as Hugo Kyle, my father-in-law, and Maria's son, reacted. Hugo, though embarrassed, admonished his mother. "Mom, that's terrible to say. Jenny can eat as she pleases." Maria backpedaled, claiming concern for my well-being, citing old photos where I appeared better. Despite my embarrassment morphing into irritation, I kept calm, not wanting to cause a scene during our initial meeting. I graciously accepted her unsolicited advice. As time passed, such incidents increased in frequency and intensity. Despite bonding with everyone, Maria remained the sole dissenter, her disdain unfounded. Even Hugo's childhood friend, Jack, embraced me. Yet Maria persisted, even on my wedding day, behaving like a bridezilla, trying to undermine me. "No, her hair should be in an updo like mine was. But you look so ugly." Maria's antics persisted, but amid the turmoil, I cherished the love and acceptance from the rest of Hugo's family. The gasps from the bridal party were audible, yet I found myself, unsurprised, having grown accustomed to such situations. In an attempt to rectify her words, my mother-in-law hastily backtracked. "Oh no, darling, that's not what I meant. You have the potential to look so much better. I see a lot of myself in Jenny. She's a bright young woman. Despite looking better at her age, I'd like to say she's beautiful in her own way." While my father-in-law managed to quell her ruthless antics on that day, the lingering pain and bitterness persisted. It went against my nature to remain silent and passive. My vibrant energy was diminishing, drained by this woman who seemed determined to undermine me. Fast forward 3 years to the current events of our story. We gathered at Hugo's childhood home, his parents' residence, for dinner on a Sunday night. My mother-in-law had graciously invited us, including Jack, indicating something significant was afoot. I had my suspicions, which were later confirmed, making the dinner plan seem more calculated. As the evening unfolded, my mother-in-law seized everyone's attention, announcing an important revelation. Armed with a paper, she began reading. "Attention, everyone. I have an announcement. Since my birthday is approaching, I want to share my plans. We're going to Hawaii." The paper confirmed the trip, met with excitement from everyone at the table. "That sounds fantastic." "What? Amazing news, Jenny. I've always wanted to go to Hawaii. This is great news. I'm so excited. Thanks so much, Ma. Actually, you're not coming. Honey, what do you mean? This wasn't part of the plan. I made some last-minute changes and canceled her ticket before incurring extra charges. So, my ticket was already purchased, and she just canceled it. Why does she hate me so much? Mom, what are you talking about? In the ensuing chaos, Jack and I remained silent. Harsh words flew back and forth until Maria finally offered an explanation. Okay, fine. I'll tell you why I thought Jenny shouldn't join the family event. As I'm getting older, I want to spend my remaining years with those I care about most. Unfortunately, Jenny doesn't belong on that list. Mom, really? What's wrong with you? Nothing's wrong with me. I'm just saying Jenny can't be considered family since she's not related by blood. By that logic, Jack shouldn't go either, right? He's not technically family, as you're stating. But we all know that's preposterous. He is part of the family. Since Hugo and Jenny got married, she's family too. Well, Jack is different. He's always been here, our sweet baby angel. But Jenny hasn't. I'm just not comfortable with her on the trip. It's my birthday, and I get to decide. Come on, Jenny, we're leaving. My resolute no reverberated through the room, capturing everyone's attention, including my adversary, who had been struggling to contain a smile. However, her expression turned serious at once. Maria, it's been evident from the start that you harbor disdain toward me. For 3 years, I've endured your unbearable behavior. Do you think we're blind to your actions? Do you believe we don't see your narcissism? Watch your tone, young lady. Remember, you're in my house. And it won't be for much longer. In fact, I'm about to leave. But before I go, there's something I need to say. I addressed my beloved husband, whose eyes burned with anger as he looked at his mother. Darling, I love you completely, and I've tried to weather this storm for so long. But it's clear now that your mother will never embrace me into this family, no matter how hard I try or how often I hold my tongue. She'll always find fault with me. You should go on this trip. You can't miss it. Despite her quirks, she's still your mother, and you love her, and she loves you. So go. Don't worry about me. I'll manage. Turning to my mother-in-law, who appeared stunned by my words, I continued. And as for you, unfortunately for you, I'm in love with your son, and I'm not going anywhere. You might think you can push me out, but I'm here to stay. Even in Hawaii, you'll be thinking of me because, let's be honest, I think you're fixated on me. How dare you? I ought to slap you right now. I'm not done. You're fixated on me, obsessed with tearing me down, and I can't fathom why when all I've done is extend kindness and patience, even when you didn't deserve it. But enough is enough. If you don't want me in Hawaii or consider me part of the family, fine. But I will always be here. As long as I breathe, I'll be here for Hugo, Kyle, and even Jack, but never for you. In that moment, I realized I had finally silenced her. She stood with her mouth agape, seemingly searching for words that her mind wouldn't allow. I bid farewell to the other family members, kissed my husband on the cheek, and headed towards the exit. Let me drive you home, at least. I can't let you take a cab. Don't worry about me, babe. I love you, and thank you for loving me. But I'll be fine. You have a trip to discuss. Okay, if you say you'll be fine, I'll believe you. Oh, don't forget your purse. Right, my purse. I left it in the kitchen. Upon reaching the kitchen, where Maria had retreated, presumably to catch her breath after the altercation, I encountered her. What do you want? Don't worry about me, sweetheart. I'm just here to collect my things. Well, make it quick. I want you out of my house. I can't believe you said those things to me. With that, she swiftly stormed out, too filled with anger to see me off. In that moment, I scoffed at her absurdity, grabbed my purse, and noticed a piece of paper next to it. Assuming it was the trip itinerary, I grabbed it to sneak a peek at what I was missing. As I began to read, I discovered Maria's handwriting. Dearest Jack, you've always been like a son to me, and I love you dearly. Oh, it's a letter to Jack. A bit strange, but I suppose it's thoughtful. For some reason, My curiosity led me to read further. The love and care you've shown me throughout the years will never be forgotten. Regrettably, even in my son Hugo's case, I feel the love we once shared is no longer there. Wait, is she saying she loves Jack more than Hugo? That can't be right. Persisting in reading the letter, each line intensified my astonishment. The revelations were difficult to fathom. Although I recognized it wasn't my place to read the letter, I couldn't help but be grateful for stumbling upon it. After absorbing its entirety, I paced the kitchen, contemplating my next steps. Suddenly, it struck me. Everyone who needed to know about the letter was in that room. It was time to act. Rereading the letter to confirm its contents, I sauntered into the dining room, where only 3 pairs of eyes met mine. Jenny, I am profoundly sorry for what my wife is subjecting you to. Don't worry at all. You're coming to Hawaii with us. She's just going through a rough patch right now. I'll talk to her and make her see reason. I don't know what's gotten into her, but I'll sort it out, I promise. Kyle, please don't concern yourself with me. As I mentioned, I'm fine. In fact, I've stumbled upon some interesting news that I need to share with everyone, especially Hugo. Hugo and Jack perked up, a flash of worry crossing Hugo's face. Perhaps he feared I was overwhelmed and considering a divorce. Whenever I complained about his mother, he'd empathize, marveling at how I endured her antics. I'd reassure him it was my love for him that kept me going. Noticing Maria's absence, I inquired, "Where is Maria? She needs to be here for this too." I mentioned earlier, she's a bit under the weather after your confrontation. Mentioned a headache and opted for a nap upstairs. She won't be down for a while. You know how she is about her beauty sleep. Familiar with Maria's peculiar habits that often inconvenienced others, I sighed in frustration. This is crucial. She has to be here. It's okay, Jenny. You can share with us, and we'll fill her in when she wakes up. Contemplating the information I possessed, I hesitated. I wanted to witness her embarrassment. I think you should go ahead and tell us, sweetie. It's okay, and you know Hugo struggles with anxiety. It wouldn't be good to keep him waiting. True. Hugo's anxiety could escalate quickly, and I observed him beginning to fidget in anticipation. All right, I'll share with you what I found. While I was in the kitchen, gathering my purse and preparing to leave, I stumbled upon something intriguing that I believe you all need to know about. Retrieving the paper I found, I began to read aloud. It reads, "Dearest Jack, you know that you have always been like a son to me, and you know that I love you dearly. And the love and care you have shown for me throughout the years will never be forgotten. I hate to admit it, but even when it comes to my son Hugo, I feel as though the love we once shared is no longer there. Hugo and I just don't see eye to eye like we used to, and honestly, I think it's because of Jenny. Ever since he married that girl, he no longer has time for me. He doesn't love me, and therefore, I don't think I love him. I love you, and you are my son. With that being said, I want to let you know that I am going to update my will so that you inherit all of my belongings and not Hugo. I know it might hurt him, but honestly, at this point, I don't care. It's that wretched Jenny girl. She's the one who has poisoned my love for him. I hope you receive this letter well. The reason why I didn't want to approach you about it in person is that, and it pains me to admit this, I couldn't risk seeing the rejection on your face. I know you love Hugo like he's your brother, and most likely you won't approve. But I don't care. I'm giving you everything: the money, the house, the cars, and even my small businesses. They're all yours, whether you like it or not. If you want to talk about this further, please call me, and we can discuss it. I look forward to hearing your response. I will love you forever and always, your second mom." After finishing the letter, I glanced up to witness a flurry of mixed emotions. Kyle appeared on the verge of tears. Jack seemed stunned, but Hugo looked like he was on the brink of losing his temper. I can't believe she said all those things. Is she serious? So, she'd exclude me from her, well, just to spite me and Jenny? She's officially lost her mind, guys. I don't even know what to say. This has gone too far. I'm fed up with her toxic behavior. What are we going to do? In that moment, I had an idea. A week passed, and it was time for the planned Hawaii trip. Maria woke up to find a letter from her husband on her bedside table. It read, "Good morning, beautiful. We decided to let you catch up on your beauty sleep. Don't worry, your bags are packed. Just meet us at the airport." Maria hurriedly got ready and rushed to the airport, searching frantically for her travel companions. She tried calling them, but no one answered. Assuming they had already boarded, she boarded her flight, hoping to catch up with them in Hawaii. During the 12-hour flight, she landed and video called Kyle. "Hey, Kyle. Where are you guys? I woke up late and found your note, but none of you are answering. I assumed you boarded without me. Where are you? Let's start the festivities." "That won't be happening, Maria." "What do you mean? Where are you?" "I'm at home." "What? Why are you at home?" "You see, Maria, Jenny brought some important information to our attention last week, and since then, we decided we'd rather spend time in Florida with her than anywhere else with you." Maria gasped. "You think we wouldn't find out?" "What, my baby?" "Don't baby me. You were really going to cut me out of the will, Mom." Who? How did you even find out about that?" "Oh, that wretched girl you despise so much. Jenny found your letter in the kitchen." "I don't know what you're talking about, Maria. Lying right now is only adding more nails to the coffin. Jack, tell them. You've got to believe me. I did nothing of this sort." "We all read the letter, Maria. The game is up." But I didn't do anything. Jenny is making everything up." "Oh, am I? You are so pathetic. It actually makes me sick. We all know what you said and what you tried to do. Thank goodness I was nosy enough to read the whole thing." "Hugo, Kyle, please." "No, Maria. Enough is enough. You're done. You don't get to say anything else. You messed up big time. Your hatred has caused you to be blind. Now you have to suffer the consequences of being alone on your birthday because of what you've done. I hope you can use this time in Hawaii to reflect on your actions. But I'll be alone. It won't be fun. Maybe people would like to hang out with you more if you weren't such a raging witch. Have fun." And with that, Kyle hung up the phone. We all let out a sigh of relief. I was the first person to start laughing, eventually joined by Hugo, and before we knew it, we were all bursting with laughter at the dining table, just laughing at the sheer absurdity of the situation. The look on her face once she realized the game was up was priceless. Her face turned pale, all the blood drained from her face, and it was evident that it was the first time in a long time that she felt embarrassed. Maria had to spend her vacation alone, frequently calling Kyle to see if he would at least come and join her because canceling the reservations she made would be expensive. But every time he kept denying it, stating that when she comes back, they were going to have to implement some ground rules if she still wanted to be married to him. Maria began to be very apologetic and frantic, a complete 180 from her usual demeanor, which was genuinely surprising. Hugo also mentioned that if Maria still wanted to be in his life, she had to make a drastic change in her attitude. Otherwise, he was ready to walk out of her life forever. Their relationship remained rocky, and Hugo asserted that if Maria ever disrespected him again, even with the smallest snide remark, he would cut her off completely, just as she had planned for him. As for Jack, he decided it was best to stop being overly accommodating to Maria, as it was clearly enabling her toxic behavior. So not only did Maria end up spending a miserable time in a beautiful place, but she also risked losing the 3 most important people in her life. She now has very strained relationships with all of them, and she has to change for the better. Regarding me, I messaged her, stating that I need time to decide if I'm going to forgive her for all of her injustices. She was apologetic and begged me to talk some sense into the men in her life. I refused, stating that this is the bed she made for herself, and now she has to lie in it. To this day, Maria is still attempting to mend the very broken relationships that she caused. I just hope she learned her lesson. I'm Noah. overseeing the family-owned public bathhouse passed down from my grandfather. Together with my wife Emma, we experienced a pivotal moment with a child. On an early spring evening, still carrying a lingering chill, past 9 o'clock after our last customer had left, Emma and I were wrapping up the day's work at the bathhouse. While Emma attended to the interior cleaning, I headed towards the entrance. As I approached the garbage disposal area a little distance away, I noticed a small figure. Under the streetlight's glow, I discerned a disheveled girl sorting through the trash. Intrigued, I wondered if she was searching for something. Given the late hour, I decided to approach her. Summoning Emma, we both walked towards the girl by the garbage disposal. Upon closer inspection, despite the chilly weather requiring a jacket, the girl wore only thin long sleeves, a skirt, and sneakers that were too big, causing her to crush the heels. Her appearance shocked us both. Addressing the girl cautiously, I asked, "Miss, what are you looking for at this late hour?" Startled, the girl turned towards us. Her shoulder-length hair, frizzy like a child's, and overgrown bangs hiding her eyes, gave her a neglected appearance. She replied, "I'm hungry." To avoid frightening her, I spoke gently, suggesting she come to our place. I'd offered to call her parents, but when asked for her home phone number, she shook her head vigorously. Understanding her fear of strangers, I proposed waiting together until we could contact someone from her home. Assuming she had mistaken us for strangers due to the late hour, I was surprised when she revealed, "My mom hasn't come back for about 3 days. I'm waiting for her to return, but I'm hungry." Alarmed by the possibility of abuse or neglect, I suggested involving the police. However, the mention of the police made her instantly wary, expressing dislike for them. Concerned, we continued the conversation, only to hear a gurgling sound from her stomach. At that moment, Emma asked, "How long has it been since you've eaten? Are you hungry?" I scanned for any available food, realizing I hadn't eaten since morning. Neither my wife nor I knew how to respond to the girl's revelation. She hadn't eaten all day, searching through the trash in the late hours while clad in thin clothing. The grim reality of her situation weighed heavily on us. In a surprising turn, my wife suggested, "Would you like to come to our home?" Her words startled me. Taking a stranger's child home without involving the police could lead to complications later. I glanced at my wife, wondering if she grasped the potential risks. She met my gaze and said, "I understand what you're thinking. As adults, it's the right thing to involve the police. However, I can't ignore a shivering and hungry child standing right in front of me." Her perspective resonated with me, and I made a decision. We could take the reluctant girl to the police tomorrow. But for now, the immediate concern was providing a warm place and satisfying her hunger. With a reassuring smile, I extended my hand to the hesitant girl, saying, "It's okay. Come to our place." After a moment of hesitation, the girl reached out and took my hand. My wife took the girl's other hand, and the three of us, hand in hand, headed back to the bathhouse. Upon our return, we learned the girl's name was Mia. While my wife took Mia into the bath, I prepared some clothes. Mia's current attire was dirty and too cold-looking, so I selected suitable replacements from my wife's wardrobe: a pair of drawstring pants, a shirt, and a jacket. The drawstrings on the pants would secure them in place. Swiftly, I rushed to the convenience store to purchase small women's underwear, ensuring Mia had everything she needed. I also grabbed the toothbrush before finishing my preparations. By the time I was done, my wife and Mia emerged from their bath. The clothes and underwear appeared a bit oversized, but Mia managed to put them on. The once pale-faced girl now looked more like a child, her complexion returning after the bath. Her washed and dried hair was smoother, though her bangs were too long. My wife secured them with a pin, revealing the lovely face hidden beneath. I asked, "Did you warm up?" Mia nodded eagerly, expressing excitement. She shared her experience of the bath, likening it to a big pool and expressing her delight at the warmth. Her smiling demeanor reassured me. While I dried Mia's hair, my wife prepared a meal. The bathhouse and our house were adjacent, so once we finished, we moved next door, My wife served a warm pot filled with vegetables, meatballs, and yudo noodles. The sight of the dish made Maya's eyes sparkle. "Can I really eat this?" she asked. My wife chuckled and encouraged her to have seconds. Maya proceeded to eat heartily, using a fork and spoon as she wasn't accustomed to chopsticks. "This is delicious. It's been a while since I ate warm food," Maya remarked, reflecting on the environment she had endured until now. My chest swelled with a mix of emotions, feeling like it was about to burst. Maya seemed to be opening up and trusting us a little. Once her stomach was filled, she began sharing her story. She spoke about her rarely seen mother, her routine of rummaging through garbage for food, and her status as a 7-year-old in first grade. Maya didn't have a school bag, and her shoes and clothes were often dirty. The heartbreaking reason behind her absence from school surfaced. She was bullied for being perceived as smelly. As a couple, Maya's narrative struck us profoundly. "I like it here. I want to sleep here." "Are you going to call the police?" she asked. Without hesitation, my wife and I wanted Mia to experience at least one night of warmth and rest. Reassuring her, I said, "It's okay. Let's sleep together on a fluffy bed tonight. But could you go to the police with us tomorrow?" "Don't worry, they are kind. Your mom might be worried too." Mia, who had been silent for a while, rubbed her sleepy eyes and expressed, "I hope so. I hope she is worried, Mom." I wanted to comfort her, but I couldn't easily speak positively about a mother who had likely abandoned her child. Temporary comfort might hurt her later. In the room, I prepared the bedding, and Mia happily got into the bed. It was her first time sleeping in such a fluffy bed, and she marveled at its warmth. Concerned about her being cold, she mentioned, "I hope she is not cold. It will be nice if she could sleep in a warm bed too." Silently shedding tears, my wife and I were moved by her brave concern for a mother who left her without food. I struggled to hide my emotions from Mia, who was already drifting into sleep. The next day, my wife and I accompanied Mia to the police box. I couldn't forget the slightly lonely look on her face as we said our goodbyes. Saying goodbye to Mia and her mother was a bittersweet moment. Despite the lump in my throat, I managed to offer a smile. "Yeah, hopefully we'll see each other again someday. The police will take good care of you from here, so you have nothing to worry about," I reassured Mia, who nodded in understanding. As we departed from the police box, my wife hugged Mia tightly, waving at us with a smile. Maya left an indelible mark on our hearts. Though we had grown close to her in just one night, bidding farewell was a painful experience. On the journey home, my wife expressed deep concern about Mia's future. We were a childless couple who had once dreamed of having 3 kids. However, fertility issues, specifically ovulation problems, plagued us. Despite a decade of infertility treatments, we remained childless. We decided to cherish our time as a couple, having tired of the emotional roller coaster associated with conceiving. Our focus shifted, and we lived a quiet life together. Our own struggles made us particularly sensitive to the suffering of children at the hands of neglectful parents. Unable to shake our worries about Mia, we contacted the police box where we had left her. They informed us that Mia's mother had not returned, and Mia was headed to a children's home. Due to our role in finding her, we learned the name of the facility. Promptly, my wife and I visited Mia at the children's home, discovering a multitude of children separated from their parents for various reasons. Mia, upon seeing us, immediately embraced my wife, expressing, "Aren't you and your wife going to stay with me? They said my mom might not come back." Stunned by her words, we covered up her straightforward question with a forced smile. Despite the emotional bond formed in that short time, the reality was clear. We couldn't live with Mia. After all, we were strangers, but when we spoke to the children's home staff, the story took an unexpected turn. Upon leaving, we were introduced to the concepts of foster care and adoption. Sensing a pivotal moment, I glanced at my wife, who met my gaze with earnest eyes and nodded in agreement. That marked the moment we decided to explore these avenues. Learning about foster care and adoption that day prompted us to sign the necessary documents. For children like Mia, who had recently arrived at the children's home, obtaining permission from the family court was deemed necessary for adoption or foster care procedures. Fortunately, that permission was granted without any complications at a later date. Following this, we actively engaged in training and seminars to become adoptive parents, leading to busy days. During this period, we occasionally visited Mia, gradually building a connection with her. During one visit, we mustered the courage to ask Mia, "How would you feel if we said we want to live together as a family in place of your mom?" Her response was heartwarming. "I'd be so happy," Maya answered with a beaming smile. It was a moment that fueled our determination. While a traditional mother experiences the blessing of nurturing a child in her womb, we lacked that natural process to become Mia's parents and witness more of her joy. We set a goal and combined our efforts to overcome the challenges of busy days. However, a day of unexpected turmoil arrived. We received a call from the children's home staff, urgently inquiring about Mia's whereabouts. It turned out she had slipped out of the facility. Both my wife and I rushed to search for her. The distance between the children's home and the apartment where Mia used to live, now our home, added to our anxiety. Fearing the worst scenarios, we received a message that Mia had been found by the police. Hurriedly, we went to see Mia upon her return to the children's home. As we arrived, Mia's tear-streaked face told a story of her recent experience. "I want to go to where you guys are. I want to eat meals together again and take a bath like in a swimming pool." Mia expressed, her words filled with longing. My wife and I were rendered speechless, embracing her tiny body tightly. This incident served as a catalyst, intensifying our desire to become a family with Mia. As time passed and Mia regained her composure, we made her promise not to leave the children's home alone due to our concerns. We reiterated our intention to take Mia into our care to the staff. Subsequently, the procedures took more than half a year to complete. Finally, as a couple who had undergone special adoption, we were able to bring Mia home. Fast forward 4 years, and my wife, Mia, and I were living joyfully. Mia was no longer cold or hungry. Each day, she cheerfully went to school with a neat school bag on her back. However, shortly before Mia's birthday, a letter arrived from her biological mother, expressing a desire to meet Mia on her birthday. Without hesitation, Mia agreed to the meeting. Though we felt uneasy as parents, Mia was already in 6th grade, an age where she could make decisions for herself. We respected her choice. On the day of the reunion, Mia went alone to the designated cafe. Anxiously waiting for her return, she came home after about 2 hours, her demeanor unchanged. According to Mia, her biological mother had remarried and seemed genuinely happy. Maya felt relieved to see her mother happy and expressed her love and understanding, despite being left behind. Seeing Maya's determination, we felt proud and relieved that we could continue living with her. The 3 of us decided to celebrate Mia's birthday by buying a cake together. Holding hands, Maya looked a bit embarrassed but complied. Reflecting on the journey from the day we found Mia rummaging through the garbage to our walks hand in hand to the public bath, we realized how much she had grown. Maya would continue to grow, but she would always be our precious daughter. As I etched this happy moment into my heart, I knew that we would continue to walk together as a family of 3, cherishing each step of the journey.